presentation, but leave president, we're ready.
Okay.
Well,
Right here.
I'm just gonna stick with it.
Calling to order the August 24th, 2024 Board of Trustees Workshop. Please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to our acknowledgements. We acknowledge that College of the Redwoods is located on the unceded territory of the Wiyot, Hupa, Karuk, Matol, Talala, Wailaki, and Yurok people, where they have resided from time immemorial. We encourage all to gain a deeper understanding of their history and thriving culture. As an expression of our gratitude, we are genuinely committed to developing trusting, reciprocal, and long-lasting partnerships with the Wiyot people, as well as all of our neighboring tribes. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, general public comments. Do you have any comments?
There are none.
Great, thank you. Moving on to item 2.2, bond advocacy training with Barry Barnes. I want to say Barry Bonds. Okay.
Barry, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Barely.
barely.
Turning back. Oh, Julie's working on it.
Good morning. Are we ready to go, or do you need to do technical there?
Julie, you ready?
Okay.
If the trustees have anything to say, I can remind you to please use your mics. So you can pick it up. Barry, I think. I should remind myself. Barry, I believe we're ready to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Flamer. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here today. So I have some information in terms of what, as trustees and college employees, what is allowable. I have some information I'll share on screen in just a second from David Kaznoka, who is the attorney that's been advising the district on the bond measure. You'll remember him from the meetings when we were placing it on the ballot. So I will quickly go through the guidelines he presented in terms of what is allowable, and then also happy to answer any questions about content or recommendations. I'll preface it by saying that given that we are now, the measure is on the ballot, we are in the advocacy stage. This is an official board meeting. Really most of this conversation, and I think if David was here, would advise, most of the conversation should be about what can and can't be done on the district side, as opposed to what could or should be done on the campaign side, because we do have district employees in the meeting right now. We're in a district facility. So happy to answer any questions that come up, but just with that preface that this would not be a time that we want to get into details of campaign strategy or messaging or anything like that. That said, let me go ahead and I'll share my screen, which has the guideline. And I'm sorry, just for my knowledge, is the college district's attorney in the room, or do we have an attorney in the room or not?
No.
Just so no.
We do
Okay.
not.
Okay. I always like to know that before I start covering legal issues, because I didn't go to law school. So I always like to send it off if possible, but I've been doing this for 30 years with this document many times. So again, district employees cannot advocate for the measure while on staff time. And by district employees, this obviously means administrators, staff, and faculty, but as individuals can fully participate in the campaign when not working. And then I have there's another section farther down that talks about trustees. When serving in an official capacity as an employee, the employees can provide factual, unbiased information about the district, about what the measure will accomplish, provide information about what will happen if it does not pass, distribute factual, unbiased flyers and FAQs about the measure.
I'm gonna turn on the video.
Do we have an issue? Is there an issue?
No. it's-
Okay. Okay.
Should we make that bigger?
Yeah.
That's why I logged into.
Barry, would you please, make the screen bigger so we can read it?
Sure. Sorry about that.
Document bigger.
Or you can log into the Zoom and see them. Make it out.
How's that?
Better.
Much better, thank you.
I could even go bigger.
Oh, even better.
Whoa. Okay.
Wow.
Perfect.
That's good for Saturday morning eyes. Okay, so we were in here in terms of what district employees can do, which is provide factual, unbiased information about the measure, provide a factual presentation, and information can be posted on the district website. So, and when we say something is, so of course, everything about Measure I, both on the district side and the campaign side, is factual, to be really clear. There's nothing that is not based in fact and cannot be backed up. The difference between factual or informational materials and advocacy or campaign materials is that the advocacy or campaign materials will say yes on Measure I, or we need your endorsement, or will you take a lawn sign, or would you like to make a donation? Anything like that that is actually advocating for or collecting support for the bond is not quote information and public information and needs to be covered on the campaign side. So that's the major defining factor. And I'll show a couple of examples. So this is the FAQ that the district has been compiling that is at least significant portions of it are currently posted on the district website. This has, and some of you have been involved in the drafting process of this back a couple of months ago, but this has the basic information, how the college serves the local communities, which type of projects could be funded by the bond, how are the list of projects come up with, how will the projects support local job training programs. All of this information has been signed off by the attorneys as quote, informational, factual, and not advocacy. And, main reason is, as you can see, even as you go all the way down here, when would I be able to vote? If the bond doesn't pass, would the project still happen? All of this it can be shared at any point, at any time, in any environment, because it is purely factual and does not say yes on I or advocate. And this is available. Again, this is a subset of this is posted on the website. There's a similar fact sheet, but this was developed prior to placement of the measure on the ballot, and it is still valid information. Comparing that with, this is just I'm showing for reference. We're not, but for reference, this would be is a campaign flyer. So the difference here is that it talks yes on Measure I, it has a link to the website, it has the paid for by, the disclaimer at the bottom. So this is what we're talking about advocacy. This is something that could not be distributed at a college could not be distributed on college time or by employees on work time or anything like that. So that's the difference between the two documents or the two frames. And so if there are any questions, I'll go back to kind of the do's and don'ts. Any questions about the difference between the informational and the advocacy materials?
I don't see any questions.
Okay, great. Okay. So back to, so we already covered what district employees can do while as official capacity. And I'll remind, again, when we're talking about district employees, we're not talking about trustees. You'll have your own special section coming up here. When serving in the official capacity as an employee, district employees cannot urge individuals to vote for or against, distribute advocacy literature, which would be the example of the logo flyer I just showed you, recruit volunteers for the campaign. Faculty members cannot stand up in class and say, we need volunteers to go work on the Yes on I campaign. I do believe a faculty member could say, if you're interested, here's the information for the supporters of the campaign, and here's the information for the opponents of the campaign. Luckily, knocking on wood, we do not have declared opponents of the campaign. There was not an argument filed against the measure, in case you haven't heard. And so that would be a little tricky because there's not an identifiable place where people could go to oppose. The district employees cannot raise funds for the campaign while in official capacity, meaning Dr. Flamer or others could not raise funds from their office or on staff time, or use district copiers, meeting rooms, or supplies to advocate for the campaign or discuss campaign matters. This includes computers, cell phones, email addresses, and social media accounts. So all of that cannot happen on the district time by district employees. However, all of us, or anyone who's a district employee, does not give up their right of advocacy just because they work for the college. So just as a district employee could decide they want to spend their Saturday morning today, right now, out making phone calls or walking precincts or putting up signs for a candidate or a measure at the local, state, national level, they have that same right to do that for a measure on their own time. So there's no difference between an employee who wants to spend their off time working on a presidential campaign or working on a bond campaign. It's the same freedom. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. So when on personal time, employees can participate, can volunteer, they can donate or raise funds to the campaign, endorse the measure, wear buttons, place a yard sign in the yard, distribute persuasive information, which would be the example of that, the logo flyer I shared. You can use their personal cell phones or email to talk about campaign plans. And same thing with on their personal accounts, their personal Facebook accounts could advocate. So
We have a question.
yes.
Hi, Barry, this is Colleen. I have a question.
Mhm.
Back to the personal time for district employees when they are off work.
Mhm.
I'm wondering how you're defining off work, given that faculty, administrators, management employees are all exempt. So they don't really have hours like a 9 to 5, but is that how? I mean, I'll use President Flamer as an example.
Mhm.
He's never off work.
Right.
But what you're saying is he could place the yard sign in his yard on Saturday. So how are we defining off work?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'm not the attorney, but I will give what I've heard the attorneys say regularly on this, which is anything that is considered not part of the standard. I know that Dr. Flamer does not work a 9 to 5 day, but at the same time, there's a difference in terms of 8 to 6 on campus, if that's when typical work time is. That's considered work time. That work time. The location is even more important. Again, you could take everybody is entitled to a lunch hour or to PTO time or to time off to do activities like that, and we recommend logging of time so that if there ever was a question raised, that it would be clear that this was during a lunch hour or lunchtime. That most attorneys I've spoken to have said that's fine. The bigger issue comes in when people want to organize campaign meetings on campus and not go through a facility rental process as a regular campaign would, or an administrator sending a fundraising letter from their district email address sent out by their administrative assistant on district time, on district letterhead. All of that would obviously be a no-no. So, but weekends, I don't think anybody in the public expects to see Dr. Flamer at the office on a regular Saturday at 10 a.m. I know this is
Yeah, we do.
Well, I know I used Keith as an example, but I think faculty are also part of this exempt employee group. And I think their hours might even get a bit more complicated. But I guess what you're saying is that any exempt employee is entitled to time off, however that employee defines it, and therefore could engage in some of these advocacies.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what I'm understanding is that the heart of the matter is to ensure that you're not using district resources.
That's
But-
correct. Absolutely. That is 100% correct. That is the number one issue, and that you want to be sure to be avoiding. So no, and you know, again, you're right. People define their exact workday differently, but as I said before, no one there is not an expectation that being a public employee is a 24/7 on the clock expectation. And again, everyone does have the right to be active on other political campaigns. So, you know, if it's standard that somebody would make phone calls for some other political campaign in the evenings or even on their lunch hour, or, you know, go leave campus and during lunch and do it. That's all, you know, that's fine. The main thing are the resources at the college that you're not tapping into.
And I see that Trustee Kelly has a question.
Thank you. What about reputation and job titles? So can faculty say, I'm a dean of whatever and I support Measure I in their personal time?
Yes. Yes. There's not your job title does not as a dean or a faculty member or a president that is fine to be used in the campaign.
And Trustee Quadrati also has a question.
Hi, I'm on the bond committee, and so when you're talking about emails, I'll be sending some emails out, reaching out to community members.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be using my personal or my CR
Good question.
email?
So
As a
Right.
trustee?
You're right. As a trustee, you are in a different category. However, I still think for just to be conservative about it and safety wise, I think you would be better off to use a personal email address.
Okay, the only thing I worry about that is if it could go into somebody's, trash shit, or, you know.
Spam
might
or
not-
something, or-
Yeah, or they might not recognize it, right?
yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, you know, we always encourage people to basically just use best judgment, but I think that it is better because the district email addresses are hosted on a district server. I do think it would be better to use personal email addresses.
Okay, thank you. And one more thing.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, will we be sharing this information about employees, like their roles on campus? I'm assuming you'll send out an email.
Well, I was gonna wait until after our session today to send some.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just continue on this last part and then we can cover any questions you want. But as was mentioned, the board members do have the right, and again, as not as employees, board members have much more latitude because but you still could not utilize district resources, meaning buildings, staffing, anything like that. So, but you can work and volunteer time in support of the measure, participate in community outreach for the measure, assist with get out the vote, inform the community why you voted to place the measure on the ballot, use personal social media accounts. There's many other ways that board members individually, you know, frequently will appear in a piece of campaign mail. We had 3 members of the board sign the ballot argument in favor of Measure I, which again, I'll mention that argument in favor was the 300 words was filed in all 3 counties. And we did not receive an argument against, but that will appear in all the ballot books. So that there's just much more latitude there in terms of board members. The other thing I would just say is I know that there are sometimes hybrid events that are like a college sponsored event, but maybe it's off campus, or maybe it's a private event, but it's on campus. I think in general, what I would say is it's always better to just be more conservative about these kind of things. The smallest, if somebody's like, well, this is a good event, it's sort of a hybrid, sort of a college event, but sort of not. Is this somewhere where we should get a sign or something? This campaign, we've had 2 good polls. We have great community support. We have a very generous foundation supporting the campaign. in general, I think that anything even close to the line is not worth risking it, and certainly not worth any sort of an issue. So I would just urge conservative approach to it in terms of what would be or would not be appropriate.
Thank you.
So that's what I have. I'm happy to answer other questions. Oh, let me just take for a second. I'll go to the district side. So, and again, this is when you are speaking, whether it's informational to the community or on your own time as advocacy. We know that the messages that polled well in the district, the polling that the district did, and and what we've talked about and the framing of the measure, it's really the strongest messages are talking about right here that, the projects, including facility projects, upgrading the facilities for nursing, public health field, that's especially big in Del Norte County. Talking about improving vocational classrooms, old and inadequate student housing. We've talked about housing quite a bit, all of these projects. So it's just, I think whenever answering questions on the informational or the advocacy side, it's a good idea to reflect back to the project list. With that, I'm happy to open it up.
Hi, Barry, it's Colleen again. I have a quick question. Our student trustee is with us this morning. And I'm wondering if is there any advice to her or to students in general, or are there no restrictions on students?
Student trustee, I believe, would be exactly the same as the rest of you as trustees, and that there are no restrictions as long as they're not utilizing college facilities or staff time. Now, student organizations can, in other bond measures I've worked on, there have been student organizations filed or associated students have worked on behalf of bond measures, actively campaigning, actively handing out literature, or working on behalf of a measure. So I will say, in maybe a third of the college bonds I've worked on over the last 30 years, we have had some active student organizations who've done that sort of campaigning, and again that means if a student organization could be formed at your campus on behalf of a presidential party or a presidential campaign, as at my college campus, and they could hand out flyers or signs, a student organization could be formed on behalf of Measure I, and there could be handing out of that. Again, as long as it's handing something out on the sidewalk, it's free speech, as long as it's not being supported by college funds and staffing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions I can ask either about the what is legally appropriate or recommended in terms of the measure?
Yes, we have a question.
Yes.
Hello, this is Ariel. I'm the student trustee, and I guess I would like some clarification around when you say student organizations, do you mean as far as like the student government?
Yes. That's a good question, Ariel. And I mean, you can answer for me if the student government would typically get involved in political campaigns. But that is how I've seen it happen. I mean, at some colleges, and this is not something we're asking because the generosity of the foundation is funding the private side campaign, but in some campuses, associated students have actually made donations to campaigns. I think if that's something that there's an interest in, we should probably set up a separate call specifically with the attorneys, just to check those boxes. So there is definitely a way to be active in it. I just don't want to go too far out without legal counsel actually on with me for that one. But if you're interested, Dr. Flamer and Julie have my information, and I'd be happy to set up a call with the attorneys, and we could just talk through what standard practice is.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Great question.
And we have another one.
It's Richard. I'm curious, can a student hand out flyers on campus then?
Yes, I believe so.
Can a trustee?
Yes, I believe so.
Oh.
You can't print them out.
You can't.
Right,
You-
but if they're
you bring
privately,
them And
Right.
hand them out. And then, like, if somebody had a table at farmer's market, the trustees could be there, but they couldn't wear a name tag, correct? Or,
I'm not sure about the name tag. You certainly could be there and could hand out the materials. Again, you don't give up your identification as a trustee just because you're active there. But you certainly could be active in doing that. And I would also go back to campus policy, the question about students handing out flyers. If I showed up and if students showed up and wanted to hand out flyers for the state school bond or for their favorite presidential candidate, would that be allowed, or would they be told they couldn't do that by standard practice?
They could do that.
it's free speech.
Right. So it's exactly the same rules. If a student can hand out flyers for their favorite presidential candidate, they can hand out flyers for Measure I. And same with you as a trustee. The name tag, again, my non-legal, my take on it is, I think the name tag would be fine because again, you're just identifying yourself the same way you would on a piece of mail or in the ballot argument. So I don't think that'd be a problem.
So Barry, if you remember at the foundation meeting, I asked about getting some bullet points, but you can't do that. Because that is more of a campaign issue.
Well, no, I mean, bullet points. So,
Those are bullet points.
Right, but yeah,
so this document, these are this document, lives on a portion of it is on the current website. We are frequently updating this. We just updated this with a couple more questions. So this can be distributed. We can send this to all of you, following the meeting, and this can be available as bullet points to talk about what the measure would do. How does it support, all of this? Why is the housing necessary? How is the dollar amount selected? All of that. So this can be utilized, handed out, anything because it has no advocacy involved in it.
I mean, that's a lot of information. What I was sort of striving for was something in my senior mind I could remember. And actually, Sally, I was thinking more about when you requested the cheat card of the district that
Sure.
had the student, the square footage and everything, that if we had something like that in our wallet or something, but we can't, the college can't create that.
Well, it just depends on, well, I guess let me just ask a question.
That's factual.
Yeah. Are you talking about just an internal piece of paper you keep in your pocket, or are you talking about something you have printed copies and you hand it out to people?
Just internally.
Okay. If it's internally something you keep in your pocket, then I don't think there's any restrictions at all. Again, you could have a campaign. The short answer is yes, we can certainly do that. And that's something you could print and put in your own pocket. No problem at all.
And that would come from the bond committee, most likely, now that I'm hearing your session this morning.
Yeah.
That's something more the bond committee would create. Or
Well,
not Julie, the ACR person.
Only if you want that document to talk about, if part of the information you're looking for is to answer questions about how can I get involved in the campaign? How can I donate? How can I take a sign? How can I do this? If you're looking for that sort of information, it should come from the campaign. If you're just looking for bullet points and facts and figures and numbers, it can come from the district.
Thank you.
And I can do either, we can either adapt the current district materials or the campaign could do it. Either way, it's possible.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I don't know if the other trustees want, so we can talk about that later.
Sure, we can produce whatever's helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions? Please. Yes, Trustee Biggin.
I really like the other document about the reasons you should vote. Could you pull that up again on your screen? And
Is this the yes on?
yes,
This
yes.
one?
So is that something that we as trustees could get copies of?
Sure. Yes, I would appreciate if we could get your private email addresses would be the best way for that. And then we can distribute that to you. That would be the best way to do that. And
I
so-
would like that document because it helps me to kind of form how I could
Yep.
navigate in my community.
So if you could, I'm sure Julie probably has your personal email addresses, or if not, if you could just provide to her, and then we can send this to you, no problem.
Thank you.
Oh, also, by the
We can't do it on
way,
district time.
let me also just mention, there's the website is up, which also has this information up and on the campaign side. So sorry, I'm just.
Send it to us. Could you send it? Yeah.
So this is the website for the campaign, which is called Redwoods Bond Yes. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is up. We have an FAQ right there. This is all public domain information. We're going to be gathering endorsements. We have the basics on the measure right here. We have here to download. I believe this is the one pager that I was just showing. Let's just yep. So you can download that flyer right there. And then over here, people can click here to get involved and sign up to volunteer or help out with the campaign. This goes to this is all on the campaign side, but anybody who wants to know more on the campaign side, this is where they could find it. So this is redwoodsbondyes.com.
Trustee Kelly.
I'm imagining as a trustee advocating for this strategically, the way to get guidance and stuff on what to do to advocate would be to sign up as a volunteer. And
Yes.
to go through those channels, not to try to have one-on-one with them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
I mean,
you, yes.
yeah, that would be great. So we can coordinate through the web, signing up through the website. Any other questions?
This has been very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it would maybe be beneficial for us all to have a copy of the do's and don'ts, just as a reminder. So, got it.
Okay, well, we'll make sure everything's updated over the weekend so everything can be downloaded and sent out on Monday. I ran across a couple things that need to be updated as we are going through this, so we'll work on that and have everything ready to circulate by Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Have a nice day.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Is there anything else that we want to? The bond? Yes.
Well, I didn't want to bring it up because of the reservations he had about talking regarding advocacy.
But we can have that conversation now.
Well, it's a question that came to me from Carol Mentis,
Okay.
and I brought it up at the foundation meeting. And her question was, what do I tell community members who say, why should I vote for Measure I when there's a bond measure for K through 14 statewide or proposition, whatever the number is, proposition. And she said, I'd like to know how to respond to that in a intelligent way. And what Barry said, what Barry recommended, just tell community members that bond measures at the statewide level.
Yeah, it's not local control. Right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that even though it's a multi-million-dollar proposition, yeah,
Yes.
that there's some high level, I guess, probability, maybe we're stating now that CR wouldn't even see that. So I just wanted to raise that to make sure everybody knew that there was going to be that proposition. The proposition is for K through 14. It's a multi-million-dollar proposition. And that question could come up as to why should, we vote for both of these or vote for one of them, or what's the difference, and how is that all going to shake out?
And non-local, also not specific to the meeting. So.
I think Colleen's bringing up a really good point because I was surprised when I listened to the government relations presentation how little is actually going to community colleges. Most of it's going K-12. And so,
Yeah.
like you say, how much would we even be?
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to miss that this week, but I'm glad they raised it.
I can forward you the email,
Well,
or you get it on.
I get it, yeah,
Yeah.
I just haven't looked at it yet, but yeah.
Yeah, it just wasn't that much going to all these community colleges.
But I think one of the issues we have to be aware of is that the average voter isn't going to appreciate that nuance.
So that's the role, I mean,
That's what
where
we
we can
must,
articulate that nuance. So
Yes.
again, non-local and non-specific to the needs of CRB, even those in the needs that might be allocated to community colleges, they're not specific to the needs of.
and it doesn't mean that we would see any of it.
Exactly.
We may not.
And,
Yes.
and if can use those pennies and may not necessarily be able to be used for the needs that the district
That-
needs.
yeah, right.
So is that bond measure going on
Proposition.
property taxes or no?
The
Prop two?
proposition-
Prop two. Yeah, the state's gonna lien everybody's property in California?
I don't know.
I don't know how it's
I don't know.
funded.
Well, I'm just curious, now that you talk about it,
Yeah, I don't think-
or is, it's not a bond?
No, it's not a bond, it's a
Yeah.
proposition.
It's a
Prop two.
Be interesting.
Well, the other thing that Barry said was that there are so many propositions in this particular pamphlet that we'll be receiving that there's some level of probability some voters won't even page all the way down
Exactly,
to some of these propositions.
That was another point they made Tuesday, was that the league, they worked really hard to make sure Prop 2 is towards the top of the. all
That
the
it's number 2.
propositions, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So that, just now I'm thinking, where is our I? It's way down at the end of the ballot,
The local.
the local one. I don't even know if locally you can negotiate for where your thing shows up on the
Isn't it when
list.
you file, when you, so get in there before
We,
you get
we
A?
were very lucky to have Measure I in all 3 counties. Much less where we are in the hierarchy.
Mhm.
So we're pretty happy just to be called Measure I in all 3 counties.
That consistency.
Yes.
Because we have the county road one too.
There is a county
Yeah.
road measure.
Well, this is the landscape.
Very good.
The road measure is act to repair the roads in the county, the streets of the county.
Especially the rural area.
Rural
Mm.
areas.
Potholes. On the driveway.
I swear that's the reason my car alignment is so messed up.
Probably.
I've gotten
You'll be
3
focused
meals
on
just
it.
driving into the Taco Bell parking lot. 3 separate occasions.
Yes.
So 2 is a bond measure.
Prop 2 is a bond.
Yeah, it says a bond measure that would allow a state to borrow 10 billion,
And
not billion, billion, 10 billion.
Yes, I didn't think about it.
Yeah, that.
And we get like 1.3
Yeah,
billion.
But that's different than, I mean, so people will look at that a little different than something on their property tax bills too, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on to agenda item 2.3, finalize the board goals? This is an action item. Are your motion?
Move to approve.
My second.
Do you have any discussion or questions before we? None? So I guess I wanted to bring up something that I don't know that we need to. I mean, these goals are what we'd like them to be, but just thinking around some of our goals, particularly as with regard to our education. And I know that many of us are going to conferences over the upcoming year. And I think it would be valuable for us to have the goal as individuals to bring back what we learn and to write it up in reports for the rest of the board. I know even when many of us go to the same conference or convention, we go to different sessions, and even if in the same session, we have different perspectives.
Totally.
And so I think that's something that's really valuable, and if we could That is a group, that would be great. I don't know, but again, it needs to be an additional goal.
And I think oral too. I mean, I think the amount of money we're spending, I just got the bill for November by accident. If I look at how much we're spending, we definitely need to report out. Both, you know, in person
And just for our education. we
Right.
on
It's an amazing exercise to have to recap your experience. And I found it takes time and you go
Does.
back through your notes, but it just helps to really ingrain the information. So I totally.
well, you're really
support
good
that.
at
No, I'm
You-
not.
yeah, you are.
But thank you very much
Yeah.
for that compliment, but it's a very good exercise for us. And so I very much agree with your request.
And I should have asked, it's not a board policy.
It's not.
Okay,
We used to think it was a board policy or
Right.
environment.
because we started it after we went to
Yeah,
Anaheim.
And then the other thing I was thinking, again, not to make this a goal, but for us each to just think about what our own individual goals are for the year. And, we don't need to state them or
I know,
share them, but I think that's helpful in making sure that you are engaged in the board in the way that you want to be, and you get out of the experience and you contribute to the work of the board in a way that is positive.
I think for me, it also helped with my excellence when I was doing that, but I went to the conference and we wrote down stuff and then I was, you know, sending my stuff in spreadsheet for the excellence, trustee excellence.
And congratulations.
And
congratulations.
one more plus for that.
May I add something very quickly?
Please.
If the trustees go to conferences, if you can put something in writing as you recap what you've done, that'd be very good. What I try to do is attach your thoughts to my blog article to summarize each board meeting. And I think that I've had feedback from faculty and staff is that they actually read it to catch up on what was said.
Yeah.
And so that also becomes evidence for improvement for gradation. So if you can put things in writing, even if it's outlined that I can capture on my summaries, that would be very helpful.
And you don't use it for evidence?
I do,
Okay, that's what I was wondering as well.
I do understand it quite.
And you want it in time for your own.
Always,
Well,
if not, I switch it to time. to-
Oh, you were being serious, okay.
Yes. It's a prank, it's a prank for me. It's one of my things, yeah.
I mean, I like Times New Roman too, I have no complaints, I just.
It's- That's me,
So that's a lot of money we spent.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right, shall we? move-
So I have another question though.
Yes.
Just looking at this and I see 3C, support and advocate for general, the bond. Should that be in our goals? After hearing him speak. I mean,
You
I,
can advocate, just not on,
but should it be in a CR document?
board document.
Should we take the
Or-
word advocate out and just say support with the
We
understanding?
gotta have it in there.
Yeah, because support, maybe somebody would vote against.
Like he said, if error on caution.
What number is that?
3C.
Receive.
One of us.
That sounds good.
Why don't we just take it out? I think
Okay.
that just to
Very safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good catch.
be conservative.
I mean, and how are you actually going to, when we go back and review and say, good job, how are you gonna
Measure
actually
it.
measure it?
Yeah.
Oh, I signed my
I know.
name to it.
I saw the tomato truck by your house this morning.
So yes, let's read.
Yeah.
So you're going to remove 3C?
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Richard.
Okay, so we're going to remove 3C. Okay. I'll make note of that one, send that. Some,
Yes.
And the other thing I talked to President Robinson about was the influence, advocacy is that maybe in January, if we were to plan ahead of time and meet with a congressperson or somebody ahead of time, if there were a few of us that were going for the legislative day, would be really I think, beneficial or good. Just a side.
Yeah, the other point I've often thought about is if we aren't planning to go to that, you know, to advocate during the legislative conference, we shouldn't sign up for it. You know, we should just go to the other one, but, you
The
know,
board meeting.
well, hopefully they're not gonna be boring in the future, but maybe they
Yeah,
are.
no, I shouldn't say. Well, but you're right, because when I was at the legislative, everybody bailed, and I was sitting there at breakfast,
there's a
and the
lot of
other
money.
districts had
Yeah,
their congressmen sitting there having breakfast with them
there's
at
a lot of
the.
money for that
Sheridan.
conference. And
Yeah.
if you're
Yes.
not gonna get out and do some advocacy, I don't think it's a good use of just.
But it needs to be set up ahead, doesn't it?
Well, most districts do that.
Or that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That was why I brought this up
Be
in
Sure to
August.
find people there to talk to and then agree to what they want to talk about. And some districts go together in a group, you know, like Siskiyou.
A block.
Yeah, a block. So like Siskiyou and Shasta, or, you know, you can go in as a group.
But if I may about this topic, I mean, I feel like we have decided as a group to coordinate that stuff through the president. And I don't know if there's been a need that we haven't responded to. Is that something you're wanting to organize as trustees outside of that process, or?
Well, my point is that it's an expensive conference, and if we're not going to participate in it fully, we maybe shouldn't be signing up for that conference. That was my point.
And my point was that if we were going, that we should go, somehow, we can't individually line that up. So, but if we plan ahead, we could, you know, set it up.
So if you are going for that first day, then we could set up
Second,
some.
sorry.
Well, it's right, it's the second day.
It's the second day after the
Yeah, we can always set that
second
up to
trustee.
talk to our.
That's what, I mean, that was sort of where I was headed.
Yeah, I thought so. It's a good idea.
But you need so many people, I mean, you need at least 3 people to go too.
And student.
Like, I thought it was very
Bring your
helpful.
student.
I thought it was helpful that we had the trustees meet with Wood.
Mhm.
I think that was very good.
And Lorraine, you were talking to the CFO at the wine thing, that she was talking about him being acting governor, the other guy.
McGuire?
Yeah.
McGuire.
Is the acting, I couldn't find that online.
Well, this was at
Oh,
the
yeah.
conference.
Yeah,
You know.
he's been on TV.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause she was real big into meeting with him,
Yeah. I think it's helpful. Very helpful.
because I imagine if you want to do this, we gotta plan it way ahead.
Yes.
Especially the higher he gets.
Right.
It's gonna be more ridiculous.
It's gonna be hard. I think what we have, how many trustees are going in November? 4? So 3 at least, 4 in the central, so 5?
5 including you.
Correct.
6 now.
Oh, 6, okay. I didn't get the bill.
Yeah, so we get set up.
And
Well, that one's in
if,
January.
That's, this one, we're talking January.
if we're
I-
going,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I understand that.
if we're going to do that, I mean, we should plan for having a student join us as well. Right, that's the most effective advocacy, is to have a student in the room, depending on what you're trying to advocate for, but that's all the guidance that they give you for that, so.
Especially if you go in January. But if we set something up even before January, then we should always have a student trustee or student in the room as we advocate for. If McGuire is ever free to talk to us again, it'd be very good.
So is that something the advocacy committee would start planning for January, or would you, or? I mean,
So the way I see it, that it would depend on who is intending to attend. And then we go from there. And so that may or may not coincide with the composition of that particular committee.
okay. So how are we leaving this?
What are you looking for?
Well, I'm just wondering if you want to send out emails, who would join in January? Because you and I talked about this a year ago or 2 years ago. So would you send out an email and said who would be interested in doing this in January or?
Well, when the call comes out, when the call will come out, do you recall, Julie, when the call comes out? No.
I haven't seen anything yet. I haven't seen anything yet for January. Once we get it, we'll send it out.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking you're gonna have, like you said, you're gonna have to be right on top of it to get into somebody's office.
So when the call comes out, then goes that set forward, and it would. You know,
So,
that.
Yep.
That's what you're looking for?
Yep.
Okay. Are we prepared to move on to voting? All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay.
it is an.
Motion passed. Moving on to 2.4, finalizing the president's 2024 to 2026 goals.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have discussion or questions? And I'll point your attention to the President Superintendent's evaluation summary that is printed in front of you.
Good job.
Beautiful font.
Perfect font, thank you.
Quite
That's right.
consistent font.
It is, now it is. I'm working on that.
Working on letting go.
I'm going to therapy about my fonts. Yes. Actually, I'm not.
Your font focus.
Change the guard.
You'll be looking in. Let me know when you're ready to move on to.
Yeah.
Ready? Hearing no no's, I will move on. So this is an action, yes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion is passed. And that is the end of our agenda. And so we will adjourn this meeting at 11:03.